let this play out for just a second. This is a band called Wiki. O-I-K-I? O-I-K-I. Yeah, that's dope. Take it. Cool, 6 feet, I'll take my mask off. Stay away. Cool, so thanks for coming, guys. This is my panel. Does anyone have any questions? All right, thanks. This has been great. So, I tell you what, let's start out with how have you been keeping yourself busy during the quarantine?
I think this mic, this is like hearty. I have the volume great on here. It's been really good, which I feel guilty for saying, because I know a lot of people have had a bad quarantine, but I think it was something that kind of I needed and I didn't know I needed it. And then like work-wise, it's worked out better for me somehow. So I've been thankful. I mean, I definitely threw off some plans and some things got pushed back. But so far I can't complain. It definitely could have been worse.
Yeah, I like to say that life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react to it. So, you know, a lot of people have been using this quarantine as a mental reset, been able to work on projects that they haven't had time to and stuff like that. Been doing any music or anything like that in the meantime?
Not particularly. I was DJing for quite a few years. I still like enjoy it. It's still like the scene that I feel connected to, but I don't like actively do gigs or anything anymore so much. I've been doing camera work for the past couple of years. We just finished up like a couple of Hallmark movies over the past month, which was really fun. So like still in the film industry, but not like in front of the camera so much anymore. Potentially though, later this year, we're doing it was supposed to be, I think in March or something. It kept getting pushed back because of COVID. We're doing like a Freddy fan film. So eventually that will be coming together. Yeah. Is that a question?
Yeah.
What's up, man?
How was it working on the Freddy movie when you were a kid?
Yeah, that was, I remember more of that than like Pet Cemetery because I was so little. A squeaky chair. Yeah, it was a blast because before I ever got the role, like Freddy was my favorite movie monster. It was a weird time in the 90s where like Freddy and Jason were pop culture heroes. I had never even seen a Freddy or Jason movie, but I knew who they were. And when I knew I was gonna audition for it, I got super stoked because I thought Freddy was, badass. So yeah, I have a lot of really good memories from that set. And Wes Craven was like the best director I think I ever worked for. The vibe on set was super chill. Everybody was like different crews. It's kind of like a family. It sounds weird, but like a normal film day is 12 hours minimum. It's not like an 8-hour day at a regular job. So you get tired, you get frustrated with these same people. Like you get to know each other really well, really fast. And what was cool about Wes Craven's sets were it was like it wasn't a dysfunctional family. Everybody like knew what had to be done, and I think we finished, which is kind of rare for a lot of films. We finished on the day we were supposed to and under budget, which a lot of like bigger movies I didn't come anywhere near that. So yeah, it was a great time. You got another one? Yeah, hit me with it, man.
When you were seeing, I think it was your babysitter, getting killed. What was going through your leg when you were? She was getting crawled up.
Yeah, that was a hard one to shoot because they did the rotating set. It was like a big tumbler for the stunt element of it, where he's like walking on the walls. But then, what did they do? They might have had a dummy for the over the shoulder. It might have been green screen. But I wasn't actually like upside down or whatever. I wasn't tied in there. But then for the reverse, it was normal. But she wasn't there. She wasn't able to like do the scene with me, so there was nothing to react to. So they had a piece of tape like on a stick. But then I remember the script supervisor, who was like a really good, could have been legit, she might have been an actress as well. She was able to like give the reading with the depth, like the emotion that helped to kind of play off of. And I think they fucked with me too on that one. Sorry, can I curse? I just did. Fucking. Too bad. They like told me, I think, okay, so in the documentary, I think they overplayed this. They told me that my parents had died, or like my mom wasn't on set. They're like, oh yeah, there was an accident. And it helped me get in the headspace, which is super messed up. But part of me kind of knew, I'm like, that's probably not true. Why would it be on the day where I've got this really intense emotional scene? Like, you know what, just use it. Just go with it. Like, don't overthink it. So I think, yeah, from what I remember, I think that's how that played out.
Have you met Stephen King?
Say again?
Have you met Stephen King?
I did, and I only remember it through the pictures that I've seen. Unfortunately, I would love to like have been able to remember that or meet him again. Yeah, apparently he was Stephen King. My parents probably remember more than I do. And I got a signed copy of the book from him, which is pretty special. It's a paperback, which I'm kind of like, Mom and Dad, why didn't you pop for the hardcover if you knew you were gonna get Stephen to sign it? Like, come on. But yeah, better than nothing. Can't complain. Yeah.
Have you seen the remake and what are your thoughts on it?
Yes, and there was moments I think that were really good. Like I liked when he's going to the cemetery and it's swampy and it's got that, like there's the Wendigo off in the distance, that was super creepy. There's like the dream kind of thing where the door is in the middle of the forest or whatever. Like I like that kind of stuff. I think it definitely brought some moments, but on the whole it fell flat for me. Some people really like it and I'm not hating on it. Like I appreciate that they had the remake even. It was kind of win-win for me because if it was awesome, that's great. It just adds to the series or the name of it. Or if it's terrible, it's like, yeah, the original's better. Yeah, so but yeah, I felt like the family didn't really connect. It didn't feel like a family as much. I liked the idea of the twist of having Ellie be the one that gets hit. I didn't like that they gave it away in the preview because that was kind of the only thing that it really had going for it. So they kind of shot their shot in the preview, so then going to see it, there wasn't, at least for me, much to grab onto. Yeah, it could have been better, it could have been worse, you know.
What about the ending?
The ending, I felt like they were like superheroes. Like they felt like the undead Avengers, like, now we're all dead, let's go get Cage to complete the gauntlet or something. Like, it was, I guess I get what they were trying to do. I also didn't like, now I'm just straight up talking shit, fuck that movie. I didn't like that when they died, they just turned blue. Like, oh, I'm dead, now I'm blue. Like the original was, for the 80s, it was hardcore. The dude's brain's hanging out the whole time and he's just bleeding and he's there and like, I think they originally wanted to do more makeup on Gage, but because I was little, they didn't want to have me in the makeup chair for too long or have that like affect me, which is easy for me to say now. It's like, yeah, they should have gone for it, but maybe that's a good thing that they did. But yeah, like overall, there was a lot more gore, and the gore was like, it holds up. Like certain parts of the film are definitely really dated, but I feel like the makeup is still like pretty on point. I think, yeah.
First of all, thanks a lot. Y'all ruined it. I haven't even seen it.
Oh no! Spoiler alert. Just step down. There's still, you can still see it. You know, there's other stuff in there.
Also, thanks for partying with us last night.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
But
The karaoke that I think a lot of people didn't know was down here. Like, it was.
We didn't see any. We tried to find people to go, but there was no.
I think
signs up.
word got spread late. So.
Yeah, I don't think it was actually supposed to be a thing. I think
Oh, is that why? It was like low key. It was the underground party.
And we just ended up here. And
Oh, okay. Yeah, that works.
my question is, what was it like working with Terminator?
He was great, Arnold. I get pretty good memories of that. He was really good to all of the kids on set. I remember he bought us, like every kid in the classroom, he bought a Sony Walkman, which at the time was like an iPod or something. You know, it was the hot tech to have a portable cassette player, and it was cool to like think that I would listen to that and Arnold Schwarzenegger gave it to me. And I used to rock the Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles soundtrack in there.
I hope you hold on to that.
Yeah, I hope I even still have it. I'm not sure if it still exists. I think my dad might have stole it.
So, Miko, are you still doing the beekeeping thing?
I want to get back into it. I've always loved bees, and I used to have a beehive in my room. It was easier when I lived in the high desert. I'm in LA now, and I could probably try to set that up, but quarantine would have been a good time. I just didn't do it.
Right.
We got enough other things going on at the moment.
So how did they actually have you in a lot of the gory scenes in Pet Cemetery? Like, did your parents report any night terrors?
No, I think they were really mindful of like what I was exposed to on set in that regard. Honestly, I think I was so young, even if I would have seen it, I don't even know if I would have known what it means or anything, like it wouldn't necessarily would have had an effect, but I was there, but I kind of wasn't there, so I can't really say exactly how it was handled, but I know Mary Lambert's always been very adamant that she was like, first and foremost, was kind of my mental safety was at the forefront. But like filming a movie is totally different than watching a movie. So much of it comes from the editing and the music. When you're on set, there's this many people in the room on the other side of the camera, pulling, setting up cables or adjusting lights, or in between takes, they're off smoking a cigarette or eating donuts at craft service. Like, the only time it really has that atmosphere is if there's a specific scene and they want to create that, like, for the actor. And even then, it takes time. You have to like block out the fact that there's a big light right there. And so I think because of that, it wasn't as much of an issue as watching the movie. Like, holy crap, that baby is in this murder house and blood and gore and stabbing people. Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as it seems like it might be.
Does it creep you out when you go back and watch like you as a child doing those type of things?
It creeps me out to watch like the later stuff. I think because I just judge myself. I can't like watch the movie for the movie. It's hard to disassociate. I think Pet Sematary is the easiest to enjoy for what it is because I'm so far removed from being a toddler that I can just like pretend that it's not me a lot easier. But a lot of the other stuff, like I can only watch it every so often, and then it's like that's enough. Yeah, it throws me off. Anybody else? What's on your mind? Yeah, if you're a fan of the New Nightmare, I think it would be like a fun short, and it leaves it open ended. So like, hey, if it's good, we could always do another one after that. Yes.
How was working with John Ritter?
John Ritter was cool.
Love that movie.
That's cool that you remember that.
Love that movie because that was
nice.
like you were almost an adult.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of friends, I guess maybe more acquaintances at this point with his son, Jason. And his son, Jason, worked with one of my best friends, Mike Welch, on a show called Joan of Arcadia for years. So I kind of run into him for a few years after John passed. But I remember he was just like, he would always tell jokes. We were always like making jokes, and it felt weird because I was a kid, and I was like, oh, I'm making like jokes with an adult on the regular. It felt like very mature to be like hanging with him on that level. I don't know. He was a great guy. So yes.
So, just out of curiosity, when fans approach you, if they see you, is there like a movie line that they're always like, oh, dude, you gotta say it?
It depends. It depends on what people connect with. When I was like, some people are like here at the horror cons, of course, at Pet Sematary and New Nightmare. Sometimes like if it's just out in the world, or if like a family member that's not a horror fan comes to these, then they're all about like Full House or like Kindergarten Cop or Mercury Rising or whatever it might be. I think there was one point where they didn't tell me he was gonna jump out and like scare me, and then he like really did, and I think I was just having a bad day. I started crying. I'm like, I don't want to act anymore. I don't want to do this. Like, he felt so bad, so bad. And I think the scene didn't even seem, like it wasn't even that bad in the final cut. Like, it was just for whatever reason that day. But yeah, no, gosh, I wish I could think of like one or two really succinct things, but just on the whole, he was the best. One of the best, if not the best, to work with.
So, Miko, yesterday I had Hal Hamilton here from Night of the Demons, and he was talking about sneaking into the set of the Tonight Show to sit in Johnny Carson's chair.
Oh wow.
You were actually on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Do you have much memory of that?
Gosh, like vague memories. I know more of the story that I've been told from my parents. So, this is a little bit of a game of telephone. I don't know if this is 100% confirmed, but like apparently I was the youngest person on Johnny Carson. It was around the time Johnny Carson and Leno was like guesting, and then he was gonna take over. And I think I was on for something, it might have been Kindergarten Cop, on Leno. And I guess it went really well, and when Johnny was back, he's like, I want to have him on. So I went back to be on with Johnny. And it might have been for Kindergarten Cop 2 about the same time, but it might have been a different project, because I feel like they usually don't have somebody, yeah, this is like how that memory is of it. But in any case, yeah, I did those relatively around the same time. And then it was like some trivia site or something that said I was the youngest guest ever on Carson, so. That's unverified, but it sounds cool, so I tend to want to believe it's true.
No, I've actually read that when I was preparing for our interview the first time.
Nice.
It was one of the first. You were actually the youngest that Carson had on there. But you were actually also the youngest that had done both Carson and Leno.
Oh, nice. Killer. Yeah. Learning stuff about myself. Are you guys enjoying the show? Were we all happy to be here in the middle of a pandemic?
Yes.
I was nervous, but now that I'm here, I'm so happy. Like, this has been great. It just feels good to get out of the house. Like, I don't know how it is here, but Cali is rough.
Yeah, imagine Cali, but without the beaches.
Yeah, the beach is closed. It was funny because like the only things that were open for a minute were the parks and trails, which was so stupid because everybody was hiking. Like if you went hiking, you could not breathe on people. You're all crisscrossing, which is the whole point, was to not. So then they had to close that too. I think I saw a question.
New Spawn movie, is that ever gonna happen, you think?
Whoa, I have no idea. That's a good question. I think it would do well. I think when the first one came out, CGI was like right at the beginning. So at the time it was like, whoa, CGI. And if you watch it now, it's like, ooh.
CGI.
Yikes. Yeah, that would be fun. I haven't heard anything, but I feel like everything gets remade eventually. So I would just give it time. I wouldn't doubt it. I was kind of bummed that I was like hoping for the Pet Sematary remake to maybe get a cameo. I was hoping I could like drive the truck or something. But that didn't happen. And then it turned out bad anyway, so you know what, fuck y'all. I don't want to be in your shitty movie anyway. I'm glad I dodged that bullet. But now I joke and say like, maybe in another 30 years I could give a crack at Judd. So catch it on the third round. Yes.
How did you end up coming into the role of the Pet Sematary?
I think I just got really lucky. My mom thought I was precocious and took direction well. Wanted to try to get in like commercials or whatever. I got headshots taken, and I got lucky. I got the first 3 things I auditioned for. And she said it was really hard to even get an agent. She was like knocking on doors for 9 months with nothing, and then I got a chance. And then the head agent called me in and was like, "Where have you been all this time?" My mom was like, "Knocking on your door for 9 months." And then Pet Sematary was like a month or so after that. I don't remember the audition or anything, but it was just right place at the right time. Super thankful. What else you got? Give me a hard one.
With being in these types of movies, do you yourself believe in the paranormal?
Maybe. I don't know. I tend to not, personally. I think I believe in aliens more than ghosts. But I think there maybe is something like that, but I think 99% of like the paranormal and that whole scene is just fun. In my opinion, anyway. And it is fun. Like, why not? But do I literally think there's a lot of that? I think if it is, it's pretty rare.
Do you believe in like folklore though, like Wendigos and skinwalkers?
Ooh, maybe. I don't know enough about it. Like, maybe I haven't been exposed to it. It's not impossible. I think it's highly unlikely. I've had weird stuff happen before that's unexplainable, but I'm not saying is definitely a ghost, but I'm not saying it isn't, you know? I don't know. Maybe. When I die, I'll come back and haunt you and let you know.
What made you want to flip the switch from being in front of the cameras to now being behind?
I think I did not want to act at a certain point because I'd been doing it my whole life, and it just, like, I wanted to be normal. And then I had family problems, like, kind of cliche kid actor. My dad, like, kind of stole everything. The family fell apart. I was right in the middle of the divorce, got ugly. And after that, I was like, even when I was trying to audition, my heart wasn't in it 100%. I'm not the cute little kid that I was at the time. And like, LA's vicious, you know? So I was kind of like, you know what? That's good. I'm good. And then for a long time, I did a bunch of other stuff. And I think I realized at a certain point that I missed being on set because I like that culture because I grew up on it. Like, I'd rather work hard, play hard, like work 16-hour days for weeks on end and like totally destroy yourself, but then have a month off. Rather, like, I've done the 9 to 5 and like it just doesn't work for me, you know? But I didn't necessarily want to act, and it took me a long time to figure out like there's other positions like on set. And then I just kind of fell into camera. I had a friend, a roommate who was doing a film program, and they had like a lot of success with it. And at the time I wasn't quite ready to do it. They were just finishing up, and I was like, you know what? Like, this whole time they were doing it, they did great, and it seems like a blast. Like, I think it's time to kind of explore that again. So now, in a weird way, I'm like starting all over from the bottom. But I think it's good. Like, I think it's been good for me, and I've really enjoyed it, and I'm happy with how things are going so far. So, and I may, like, even regardless of the New Nightmare thing, like, I wouldn't be opposed to acting, but I'm not like actively pursuing it. But I enjoy the creativity in filmmaking and the process, and like the familial thing of working with a really cool group of people. So, yeah. Yes.
Do you have any props from films you've done before?
Yeah. From Pet Sematary, there's a scene where there's like a little toy truck. It's like a red wooden thing that I like crash into. It's like, I've got that. I've got like the fake scalpel, the little retractable syringe, yeah. I don't think we have the scalpel. There's like a plaster cast of my head. I think they used for part of the coming out of the. I don't know if it actually ended up in the movie. It might have been for the puppet. Or like at the end, the goofy little doll that falls out of the ceiling. It looks totally different. It looks way more realistic than what it ended up in the movie, so that might have been something else. I don't know. And then from New Nightmare, I have a couple Rexes, 3 Rexes, I think. The pajamas, the park, like the park from, it was like the Glendale Park, and they were gonna tear it down and upgrade it to like the newer plastic modular type stuff. And I guess my parents asked, like, what are you gonna do with it? And we said, take it to the dump. We're like, we got room out in the desert. Like, we'll just take it off your hands. So that's kind of weird. That's probably the biggest. It's an actual, like, the swing set and the rocket and the merry-go-round and the little spaceship stuff. And it was great growing up because like they'd have birthday parties and have my friends over, and we'd just play in the park. It was in the backyard. Had a trampoline dug into the ground. It was pretty sick. It was dope. It's like super rusty and probably needs a paint job now, but it's still out there.
It's better than the plastic.
Yeah.
equipment that everyone has now.
It gets hot though. In the summer, if you go out there, you gotta be ready.
Of course.
Like,
From Bakersfield, I know all about that.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, in the back.
What's your memories of working with Bob Clark?
Bob Clark. Why is that name familiar?
Baby Jesus.
Oh, yeah. He was cool, man. Yeah, it was all like audio stuff. Because we were recording that movie for years. It was weird, like, that it took that long, because I think we had recorded almost the whole movie, and then there was a big break. I don't know what they were working on, whether it was like editing or distribution or something. They needed some more lines, and my voice, I think, had changed. And a lot of times in that case, they'll get somebody new or they'll get somebody else or whatever. But like, we had to redo the whole movie because my voice had changed enough for it to match. And then, yeah, it was like over the course of, this is like a total kid memory, so this might be off, but it felt like 2 or 3 years from the first recording session to the end. And I think, how old was I? Was it during that time or afterwards? It was probably afterwards, because that's a pretty risque movie. I realized I saw Porky's and made the connection that was the dude that did Porky's. I was like, no way, that's so cool. I want to say I got to see him like at least once after that to be like, I like that movie. But yeah, he was a nice guy. I'm trying to remember something like specific, but just the general experience was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about Bruce Willis?
Yeah, that was quite the experience. Bruce is a very intense guy. He was very polite. He's very soft-spoken and just kind of private, understandably. Kind of has a reputation of being a little bit of a dick. That's probably kind of true. But, you know, he was nice to me. And it was fun. I know, like, one of the big memories from that was him and Alec Baldwin. I think I got them once. And then after that, it became a war of silly string. It was in, like, a silly string phase. And I surprised them one time. And then they had the golf carts on the back of the Universal lot. And they would do drive-bys and be like, silly string. Oh, I can't drive. That's not fair. Yeah, he was very, very intense, very serious. But he was funny, he cracked jokes and stuff. But he's about what you would expect. Like when you see him in interviews, like what you see is that's accurate. Yeah.
Is there an actor or actress that you would look forward to maybe wanting to work with or act with in the future?
Mila Kunis.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why that popped in my head first, but yeah, and you know, there has been plenty over the years that have been like highly specific about it, and now in this moment, like nothing too particular is coming to mind. I've always been an Edward Norton fan. That would be cool. Yeah. I just want to work again, to be honest. Like, I'm not picky. Anyone else? What's on your mind? What are you thinking? Yes.
During the fires in California, you weren't close to living by them, or you were far away?
Kinda. Where I wasn't too bad. Definitely affected by them with like traffic and stuff. The 405 looked like a volcano a few times. That was pretty wild. But that happens every few years, and they're always really bad. Like, it's crazy. You just kind of have to anticipate it. But yeah, thankfully, the smoke was pretty wild because that traveled really far. But where I was, thankfully, wasn't too in the weeds, you know. Yeah.
Is it as expensive as everybody says it is to live in California?
Yeah, it sucks. I haven't really lived anywhere else, but so I haven't been able to like feel the difference. But like after COVID and everyone talking about people moving, it's definitely appreciated because I wouldn't mind if rent dropped a bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's not as bad as like New York. there's always, grass is always greener. But yeah, I've considered moving. It will probably be a thing eventually.
So like a smaller town in California, or?
Yeah, well, my family home is outside of Los Angeles, which is nice. So I can kind of get away to there. I can always move back there if I need to, or I go back and visit home, you know, every month or two. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to getting out of California if it made sense. It just hasn't been optimal for whatever reason yet, you know. Yo.
How about do you remember much about the movie Zeus and Roxanne?
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was cool because you just got to spend a month or two in the Bahamas. Like, it was like a vacation. Yeah, filming was really cool. I remember like every night, because it was a tourist area, like right next to the hotel was they do like performances, and it was limbo. It was all about limbo. Every night, like I think I got pretty good at limbo for being a kid. You know, like this is practicing every night at the free show out in the courtyard, and they had really cool like trinkets and stuff. I remember I got this knife, and I thought it was so badass because I had a knife, and it had like this little clay, like voodoo-looking guy on it, and a jewel. That's my memory, not like filming, not like the experience of the people. My little kid memory was like, I bought a knife. Yeah, in the back.
Is there a location or an actor that you just had a really bad experience and would not want to work with again?
Yeah, I mean, locations can suck if they're like out in the middle of nowhere and it's cold and there's not like, if it's low budget and there's, but nothing too terrible in that regard. Actually, I think the travel has been one of the best parts, getting to go to like the Bahamas or Canada. I think I did Italy a couple times for like a Colgate commercial when I was a kid. I kind of remember that. I remember going to a lot of museums, and I was so bored because it was just all paintings and sculptures, and I was like 6 and I didn't give a crap. And now I'd be like, oh my god, it was Michelangelo or whatever. But at the time I was like, oh, I want to go home. Yeah, as far as people, everybody, like I never had like a terrible experience, thankfully. Like maybe better experiences than others, and if it was bad, I'm not gonna like talk crap, you know. But yeah, generally I think I've been pretty lucky in that regard. Yeah.
Have you, as a mostly child actor, me growing into film, have you had to deal with groupies and stuff like some other people have whenever like some of your more popular movies came out?
Yeah, more so when I was a kid. I think it was like weird because I feel like I would be able to maybe deal with it better now. But when I was little, like I didn't really know the best way to navigate that, and I think a lot of kid actors haven't struggled with that. Like it kind of can mess with you. I hope I made it out relatively okay. I tend to think so. But yeah, no, I kind of like now getting to come to cons like this and pretend to be famous again for a weekend is really fun. And then I get to go and like in LA, everybody knows somebody that's worked on something, so it's like whatever. Every once in a while, we'll get like a random, somebody will recognize me, which is like, I don't know how you did that, like that's wild, thank you, like it's flattering. But it's just enough, it's not like overwhelming or too much, so I'm kind of thankful. It seems like a good balance, I think.
Have you maintained many relationships with people that you worked with over the years?
Kind of, a little bit, more so like other kid actors or people that I worked on stuff with. I'm trying to think, like it's weird, there's like loose connections in weird ways. I think because I lived outside of LA and because I took like such a big break, it's not as strong as maybe it would have been otherwise, but it's definitely there. Like sometimes I'll forget certain things, and it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of a crazy connection that most people would be like, whoa, that I kind of forget that it's like, oh yeah, they were in that or whatever, it's a mix. It's definitely not. My whole friend group is not like industry people for sure, which is probably good because they're all, you know. Yep.
What was your favorite kill out of any of the Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh, favorite kill. I need to rewatch them, man. I've seen them all, but it's been a long time.
Or you
Due for
could pick one from each.
yeah. They're so creative. I mean, the TV one keeps coming to mind just because it's so ridiculous. That was pretty good. Like in the original, was it Johnny Depp's character with all the blood? Like the massive amount of blood. That was pretty wild. That's pretty memorable. Yeah. Now you make me want to go watch the box set. I've seen 1 and 2 more recently, but I think 3 through 6, maybe, yeah. 4, 5, 6 I've seen the least. I need to refresh those, I think, the most. Dream Warriors had some good ones too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the best. Yeah.
We always hear about actors whenever they travel and having, well, celebrities in general, having ridiculous writers and things that they ask for just to put in the contract or whatever. Is there anything special that you ask for when you're traveling or coming to a con?
Hookers and blackjack. No, God, no. I wouldn't get to come to these if I was too demanding. No, I don't want to be that guy. I mean, I guess it makes sense at a certain point, but I don't need a lot. I'm just here to meet and hang out with you guys. Like, I appreciate that you guys even want to. Like, every time I come out to these things, I'm like, all right, there's gonna be like 4 people. like, thanks for spending your time here and not having fun on the floor. Like, I appreciate that. I think I'm boring, so I hope it's worth your while. Actually, the funny thing about writers, I heard recently the whole Eminem thing. I think it was it Led Zeppelin that started that or something, that they wanted only green M&Ms, that it wasn't the fact that they wanted only green M&Ms, it was that they wanted the promoter to read the writer, and they knew if they did that they were like following everything accurately, and it was like an extreme example that was more of a test than like I only eat green M&Ms, you know. I mean, it's still kind of a dick move, but I thought that was interesting.
Has there ever been a piece of advice that you've been given that stayed with you through your childhood into adult from an actor?
Man, I'm like a washed up kid actor. Don't ask me life advice, you know? Gosh, I mean, there's probably been good advice, but I couldn't give you something on the spot like that. Yeah, I need to have one of those in my back pocket. Thanks for the reminder for the next one. Yeah.
Did you go to regular school and kids recognize you from the movies?
No, yeah. So I was homeschooled for most of like up to high school, which I think had its pros and cons. I was kind of a nerd and like antisocial, or kind of bubbled in a way. I think it made sense, especially being young, like traveling a lot instead of getting pulled in and out of school. And I think like I got a lot of experience that I would have never had in a regular school. But then I think I missed out on a lot of like experiences of, you know, socializing and like having a big friend group and being bullied and like whatever else comes with going to school. So I think that maybe like there was a few years where it took some time to catch up on one side in that regard. I think that's why I'm always like, I love friends, I want more friends, because I never had a lot of friends growing up. Yeah, maybe that shaped my personality a little bit more. Yeah. 2 at a time in the front.
With being homeschooled, do you think it made it harder for you to learn how to socialize with other people and your friends?
Not necessarily. I think I was just starved for it. I just want people to like me, you know. Now I think that was then. Now I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you think. So, but yeah, like there was a time where I was like, was just like a video game, like computer geek, because I didn't really.
Yeah, I was homeschooled, and like, so I can understand where you're coming from.
Cool.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah, it's definitely has its challenges. Yeah, like my nephews were my best friends because they were family. We're about the same age, so it made sense. But one in the back, I think there was.
Was there ever a role you wish you ever got?
Oh yeah, but I'm glad I didn't get it because it turned out like it could have been better. So there's a script that was going around that kind of had some buzz. I think this was when I was like peak to where like scripts sometimes would just be kind of like offered, and it wasn't offered, but it was, they're like, we want you for this. This is gonna happen. This is like a big project that has a lot of buzz. And I read it and I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Like, yes, I want to do it for sure. And they were talking about like big names who were going to be attached to it. I think originally it was like Mel Gibson, and they had like, they were shopping it around. And then it looked like I was going to have to audition, but I was like already like right up there in the running. And then they switched, Bruce was going to be in it. They attached Bruce Willis. So immediately, I had just done Mercury Rising, so it was like, they can't do, it's not like a buddy thing, you can't do it back to back with like a big star like that with the same kid. So I wasn't even, I was like that, like out of the running to even be able to audition. But I'm not even complaining because Haley Joel Osment fucking killed it in The Sixth Sense, so that worked out. But it was like, no way, that was the thing, you know. Yo.
Have you ever had, what's like the weirdest experience you've had with a fan where you're just like, what the hell?
It was probably one of these. There's been some weird ones. Gosh, I wish I could think of like a great story. There's been so many of them. So many of them are blurred by alcohol too. So, yeah, just I don't know. A lot of social awkwardness comes with the territory, but that's to be expected. There was one time, this wasn't to me directly, it was in the UK for a show, and who was sitting to my left? I think it was the guy who was like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He was the guy who was in the suit. And like we're sitting there, and all of a sudden he like sits up and he's like, something's burning. Something, like the building is on fire. Like, do we have to get out of here? And it was this like really overpowering smell. I don't know if it was like smoke or what. And it was a couple that was coming down the aisle that you could smell so far away that you thought the building was on fire. It was, and the whole time I'm at my face like on the table laughing because like he realized it like just immediately like, okay, sat back down, like play it off. That was pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I can think of at the moment. How we doing? I'm gonna have a drink then if y'all are taking a moment. What's up? Oh, 10 minutes? Okay. Cool. 10 minutes, guys. What are you thinking? It's actually pretty good. I'm always so, not like stressed out, but I'm never stoked on panels, but then time flies. It doesn't get too bad. Yo.
If you could do a horror movie, like if you had a choice to be in an iconic horror movie, which one would it be? Besides Friday, that would be Nightmare.
Oh, yeah, dude, I'm living the dream. Like, I got to do it, so that's hard to top. What's like some good ones recently? I really like the Sinister movies. That would be kind of cool. Like if they did like another Sinister, I'd be kind of stoked on that. Saw was fun, but that got burned into the ground. Like the early ones were sick, and then like the 3D one. Come on, that was oof. There's like another series, and I'm totally blanking on it. I'm so bad at these. Yeah, I don't know. I really like, it's not necessarily a series, but my favorite horror film that I've seen in recent years was The Witch. and then was it the same director or writer did The Lighthouse, which maybe wasn't as good, but was like super artsy and weird and creepy, and I like the atmospheres that he makes, so maybe it's not like a specific character, but I would love to be in one of his movies, because those are pretty dope.
Are there any of your characters that you'd like to go back and do a 10, 15, 20 year later version sequel? Like, what's one that you just be like, yeah, I'd love to do it 20 years later?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my roles, it doesn't make sense just because of the nature of the character. Like, Gage is fucking dead. That's not happening. Maybe this New Nightmare like fan film that's coming up makes the most sense. So that's kind of cool that gets to happen. But other than that, like the K-Cop kid is a gynecologist now, or what? Like, I don't know. What do you do with that? Yeah, I'm trying to think of any others. If it makes sense, like if it's plausible, then yeah, I'd be open to it. But I think New Nightmare is kind of the main one that clicks, or at least has the potential to like explore.
Is it a huge difference going from, say, being on set and like Kindergarten Cop, New Nightmare, whatever, versus doing like Rugrats episodes or Hey Arnold? Like,
Yeah, well,
because of the interaction, are you in a group like this where y'all sitting around reading, or how does that play out?
Oh yeah. So like audio or like voiceover work is definitely different. It's in a booth. I think there was times where we recorded together for different projects. I think I did like a Christmas movie. It was an elf story of Santa Claus. And I think we did like group readings for that. And we're all in the same room, but it was like divided enough to where the audio didn't interfere. But for the most part, my memories of doing voiceover was in a booth, like solo. But I think they do it different ways. Maybe the table read, if it was like a full episode or feature, they usually do or Life with Louie, I remember that, there was a table read. So everybody would sit around and like read the whole episode just to kind of get a sense of the flow and the voices and the people. But then the actual recording, I think, was solo. And then sometimes if the other person had already recorded, then you would hear them in the headphones to kind of play off of or react to. But sometimes it was just solo, silent.
Is it harder that way for you to be solo in a booth and just have to?
Maybe. I think that there's pros and cons. I think what makes it easier with audio is you don't have to mess with lighting. You don't have to mess with you don't have to worry about how you look. You just go for it. It is interesting for voiceover. You do kind of have to act or be physical. Affects the voice so much more. It's not like, oh, I can just have this rage or this emotion standing still. Like you get it from being physical. So there is kind of a bit of acting. Like if you watch voice actors, a lot of times it's interesting to see how much they get into it. And it's nice that you can redo takes back to back to back. It's not a whole setup of back to one, reset, oh, we gotta change the film of the camera. And there's maybe more room to explore of let me do 6 of those in a row, totally different ways, and then they can pick and choose and chop it up. Where film is definitely, or it's digital now, but with video, it's more of a process to start over. It's kind of cold in here. Should probably check.
It is cold in here.
Do you have any roles that you just absolutely regret when you look back and go, man, I never should have done that?
Yes. And I don't even want to mention them because you go look at them up. You're like, what's that all about? Oh yeah, that was dog shit. You were right. If you see it, you'll know. That's the one. You were right. If you think that's the one, yeah.
What's your favorite line that you've ever said in any of your movies or shows?
Yeah, it's not like I don't have a favorite.
You don't have a Rolodex?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some fun ones, but I mean, now I want to play with you with no fair. Like that shit's paid, so like I'm into it. No, yeah, I guess because that seems to be the one that people gravitate to, is Pet Sematary. So and they are kind of catchphrasy. So if I gotta pick one, I'll go with that, I suppose. 4 minutes. We can do this, team. We're in it together. All the way in the back.
New horror you like?
New horror. Yeah, The Witch was the best I've seen recently. I'm like late to the whole Annabelle thing and Conjuring. I just saw the first Conjuring recently. It's great. And now they're like so splintered, it seems. I gotta figure out the order because I need to catch up on them, but they seem kind of all over the place. I'm sure it makes sense once you see them, but kind of catching up on that. What did I watch recently? Oh, okay. So for horror fans, this is a deep cut, and it's amazing. It's called Dial Code Santa Claus. It's a weird name to remember. I watched it a week or two in Big Bear. A friend's we had this projector thing set up, and it was when we were filming one of the Hallmark movies, and we're all staying in the cabin. We hung a drape over the side of the house and did a movie night. And this movie is bananas. It's kind of a horror. It's like a thriller. It's Home Alone on crack. Apparently, the dude that wrote Home Alone was in France the month that this movie came out, and wrote it in a month, and he was in France while it was blowing up, and he claims he never saw the movie and has no idea. I guess they sued him because of the story. And you watch it, and you're like, oh, this is Home Alone, but insanity. It's a kid, and there's a drinking game you can play with the game, and one of the rules is drink every time you're emasculated by the 8-year-old. And the dude dresses up like Rambo. I think he breaks his leg at one point and has to splint it. He breaks a chair and wraps it in a splint. He gets in a knife fight with a pedophile Santa Claus and wins. It's crazy. He's got trapdoors all over his mansion of a house. He's losing his belief in Santa Claus, so his mom hires a Santa Claus that works for the company to surprise him at the house and make him believe again. And turns out he's a freaking pedophile, and he's all alone in the house, and he's trying to get this kid, and this kid is Home Alone style, rigging booby traps, but instead of a paint can, it's a fucking grenade. It's bananas. It's one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. And it's a hard name to remember. It's called Dial Code Santa Claus. It's French, so if you can't deal with subtitles, you're missing out. There might be a dub, but I don't know. I watched the subtitles. It's not that bad. It's one of those movies too you can check out and check back in and know exactly what's still going on. It's not super dialogue intense. I think the American version is called Dangerous Games or something like that. It's very generic. I don't know how it's not a huge cult classic here, because there's other ones that are awesome, but not even as good as this, and nobody's heard of it. Yeah, I've been really stoked on that one, so highly recommend. Yeah, and every angle is a Dutch angle. It's all tilted. It feels like a fever dream, and this house is it's so surreal. You believe it, you buy the world that the movie crafts, but it's so over the top. It's almost a cartoon, but totally realistic. And so the one thing you never do in a movie, you can kill people, and yeah, it's terrible. And you can kill a dog, and then that's really bad in a movie. This movie kills a dog and shows it. They don't cut away. It's bananas.
I found it.
Yeah, dude, watch it. It's great. It's insanity. And they totally stole it from Home Alone. If you take anything away from this panel today, Home Alone was a ripoff. That's my piece of advice that you asked for. Home Alone is a ripoff. genre to like watch. I like thrillers. I like horror, but I like more cerebral, like what the fuck is going on kind of scenarios. I just rewatched The Game recently, and like that's super underrated. I love that movie. It's so insane, but somehow still believable. Yeah. I think I'm getting the 0 sign. If anybody's got any last minute zingers, I think we can call it. Cool. All right, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Miko Hughes.